Welcome back to the unofficial Maple Leaf post-game breakdown. The Leafs actually won a game. Yay, good for us. We actually get to talk about a win for once on here. That's nice. Leafs win at 3-2 in a shootout over the Vancouver Canucks. First time that they have won in Vancouver since 2019. So that's a bit of a surprising streak. Didn't think that was a thing, but apparently it is. So at least that's broken. So yeah, a lot of things to talk about tonight. Honestly, for a Leaf game that, I thought was kind of going to be a little bit of a river hockey game that was going to be back and forth, a lot of scoring, high chances. It was a hell of a lot tighter than I expected it to be honest with you. Both of these teams are bottom feeder teams at this point. One team is bad, the other team is even worse. And surprisingly, it was a really good hockey game. I mean, a hockey night in Canada doesn't disappoint, I guess. So I can't complain about this one, which was nice. I really enjoyed this. So yeah, Nylander was back in this game, which was nice to see. I guess he's gearing up for the Olympics, so good for him. It didn't make too much of a difference, honestly. I thought that the offense would kind of be a little more, in tune tonight with Nylander back, and it was. They definitely had their chances. They really outshot Vancouver pretty heavy. 41-30 was the final shots. That includes overtime. I don't think that includes the shootout, but yeah. So I think that's the second consecutive game now the Leafs have heavily outshot their opponent, which is nice. That needs to happen a lot more often. But at the same time that all this is happening and it's nice for the win, there's always that that over the shoulder looming problem of do we want to be winning or do we want to be tanking at this point? Because it's nice to talk about a win and everything, to have a little positivity. Obviously, you have to at least, remain somewhat competitive down the stretch just to at least, sell tickets and kind of keep the brand name up, I guess. But, I look at this and I go, okay, it's great that we beat a bad team, but should we also be, trying to tank in a sense? Obviously you can't try to lose, I guess, when there was a couple periods in this game where I feel like the Leafs were trying to lose, especially in that overtime there, that little giveaway behind the net that almost led to a horrible overtime loss. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm one of the people now that obviously I support my team and I want this team to do well, but I also look at it if we do, a bad job down the stretch and obviously I've given up on playoffs. Playoffs are hopeless. I don't think that's going to happen. I guess lose as many games as you can. I don't think they're going to have to try to do that. They don't seem to win very many games at all anyways. So, yeah, just to maintain your picks and try to get a better rebuild for next year, I guess. But, the odd win here and there is going to be nice. So this is one of them, I guess. So yeah, no, honestly, I was happy with it. The first period was nice. Leafs actually came out to play for once. They didn't get scored on in the first 2 minutes, so that was nice to see. Honestly, it was pretty even match. As I said, for two teams that were, expected to play kind of river hockey and trade chances back and forth, which they did at times. It was a pretty sound, pretty even matched game, and I was quite surprised by that, to be honest with you. Second period is when finally got the goals going, which was nice. Canucks scored 2 minutes in. So yeah, Rafai, who's a guy who played in the preseason with the Leafs, because I knew his name sounded a little bit familiar. So he gets back in the lineup tonight, first time all year. And obviously, there was a couple moments there at the beginning of the game where he looked a little bit shaky. And then I think it's just because, again, he hasn't been in the lineup. He comes in and throws a clearing attempt or a pass up the boards, gets intercepted because no Leafs are there. I think that was just one of those poor communication plays. And then, they get it, Vancouver, and they come in and score. So that's a tough one. It's an avoidable goal, but it's one of those things where it's a guy that isn't on the roster that often. So, can you really blame him for making that play? Maybe the other guys should have been in position a little bit more for that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my notes up here. It keeps going off. Yeah, so then after that, the Canucks scored 2-0. Leafs challenge for goalie interference. And honestly, I didn't think they were going to win that one. I know that I think it was Garland who was in the crease there. I know he missed Wall in the first one, kind of bumped him a little bit, and then kind of dragged him out after. But there was enough lag time between him hitting the goaltender and the puck going in that I was like, I wasn't quite sure they were gonna win that, to be honest with you. Like it's such a gray area, and you never know how those calls are gonna go. So I wasn't sure that the Leafs were actually gonna win that. Luckily, they did. Goal comes back, which was nice. I think that was a big turning point in the game, specifically in that moment. Because if the Leafs go down 2-0 there, I think it's another game where they just pack it in and say, "Look, we're team tank now. We're not winning this. Just have a decent showing, but we're not going to make any real push for it, even though it is Vancouver. But still, so at that point, it's still 1-0, which is nice. And then after that, Nick Robertson comes down, who's had a hell of a season, plays hard pretty much all the time, has a great shot, goes into the ozone, curls around, finds OEL, he blasts it home, beautiful goal for the Leafs, gets the magic going, the energy back. So that was nice to see, getting the boys on the board. Uh, then again, later in the period there, the Canucks score. Again, it's always 1 minute after the Leafs score. I don't understand why that is, but every time the Leafs score and manage to get a goal, within the next minute or even like 30 seconds, the other team comes back and scores one. And I just don't understand how they can be so, I don't know, not ready for the other team to make an offensive push at that point. It's just all the time. A minute or two after, it always ends up in the back of our net again. So that kind of hurt us in the second period there. It's 2-1. And right before that goal, too, there was a critical point, which I noticed, and I'm not going to harp on Riley too much. I know he didn't come back for the third period. I think it was like an upper body injury. What he did some good plays, some bad plays tonight, but that's again, we'll talk about that later. Um, he has a chance right in the slot. He gets the puck, and he doesn't quite have the best control of it. He's trying to corral it, and he could have taken a shot. I think he was just trying to get better handling on the puck there to get a better shot. But he ends up getting like poke checked, and then Vancouver comes back down to our end and scores. And it's one of those moments where it's a split second decision, but that is one of the things that makes the difference between a good team and a bad team. When you have those chances, like maybe you're not going to get a good shot off, but if you at least get it towards the net, you're not going to get poke checked, and then the other team's going to go down and score that quickly. So Riley needs to be a little bit quicker with shooting the puck in that situation, but it is what it is. So Leafs go into the third period 2-1. As I said, Riley doesn't come back. And then to tie it up, Max Domi off a beautiful face-off play, kind of a scrum there. He gets it, shoots it in. It looks like it kind of hits the goaltender and then goes up and then hits his back and goes in. So kind of a funky goal, but that's it's one of those plays that you need to have happen in order for the Leafs to sort of get any traction. Again, I don't really want them to get traction at this point, win a bunch of games, but just make it competitive. You can lose games, but just make it look competitive and look like you guys are trying. So that was at least nice to see tonight. They had a really good effort, a full team effort. Everybody looked like they were on the same page for the most part and actually trying. So then the overtime. And this is where the real talking points come up here, okay? So the overtime was probably one of the best overtimes I've ever seen in terms of just it being thrilling, back and forth chances, kind of some dumb plays by the Leafs, but they recover. Wall had an outstanding game. I was incredibly impressed with how he played tonight. He lets in two, but despite that, he battles back, has an absolutely stellar overtime. Even the shootout, he was great in, and he fought. It's really, I think it's a lot easier to play, as a forward and take those chances, especially in a tough, tight game. If your goaltender is just battling, you just see him in the net, just sometimes flopping around and doing whatever he can do to just to keep the puck out of your net. Honestly, I was proud of his effort tonight because he's been a little shaky lately. He hasn't tracked the puck the best, but tonight he was tracking it all over. He was just very in tune with where it was, even the traffic and the coverage in front of the net, everything. And especially on that play, I forget exactly who it was, but I feel like it was like Matthews or something tapped it back to McCabe, and it kind of just ricocheted off the D-man stick there and came out in front. Wall, if you notice, just before that happens, Wall is like looking the other way. Like he's not even really seeing it. And then the second he looks back, the Vancouver Canuck player is like just tries to chip it in, and he just gets the toe of his skate on it. So, I mean, that was a hair puller right there. That's why I have no hairline, I guess, because of 9 years of plays like that. But yeah, that was incredible. Matthews comes down with a break, absolutely gassed. I mean, even when he was at his own blue line, I'm just like, this guy's been out seemingly forever. You can see the redness in his face on on the TV screen, and he's just doing whatever he can to just get a little steam and go down the ice. But he's burning, and then Vancouver trips him up, and I thought, it might be a penalty, and it was a penalty shot. Like I don't remember the last time I've seen a penalty shot in overtime. I feel like I must have been like a child, or like around like 11, 12, 13, maybe the last time I've actually seen that, but maybe not. I have no idea. So I don't think there's anything more thrilling, to be honest with you, than a penalty shot in overtime. Unfortunately, I think Matthews was still pretty gassed from that. He didn't look like he really had all of his all himself together, I guess, on that penalty shot. Comes down, stops it. I always say though, like if you're either in a shootout, I guess a breakaway or a penalty shot, it's always best to like take a shot. Like you can deke a little bit, but like at least get like some sort of shot off, because it just like when you do a deke and the puck kind of just slides into the goaltender, it just doesn't look good. Now I know sometimes you can score like that for sure. It's happened a billion times, but in this case, it just like maybe just fire one at the net. Not a Scott Lawton slap shot, but just fire something at the net to make it look, just a little bit better. But yeah, whatever. He had a great try. It didn't work out, so that was thrilling. And what else do I got here? Sorry about that. And then yeah, the rest of the overtime just kind of petered out for the most part. Um, One other thing too, like no penalties in this game. I think I read the game sheet and there was like coincidental minors for roughing at some point, I think, but I'm pretty sure there was like no penalties in this game, if I'm reading that correctly. I'm not exactly sure because on the broadcast they said there wasn't, and I don't remember there being any penalties anyways, but I don't know. That's what the game sheet said, so whatever. But yeah, odd. Like the Leafs are like I think either 31st or 32nd around that area for getting penalties in the league, like drawing them. And yeah, I mean it seems like there's been a few Leaf games in the past little while here where the Leafs just don't get any power play opportunities, or it's very few. I mean, even Vancouver tonight didn't get anything either, so that was surprising. And I know if there's nothing really to call, and there might have been a few calls tonight, a couple hooks, a couple drags, but I do appreciate it, and I think a lot of other fans do as well. When it's a close game and both teams are trying really hard and it's a fast paced game, that you don't want to call a penalty and slow it down, and then you got special teams on the ice, and it doesn't flow the same way. So I think from a fan's perspective, it does sometimes suck when there is no penalties, but I do appreciate the fact the refs just let them play. That's a nice thing to see sometimes, especially in this game tonight. It flowed well, so I can't blame the refs for not making a call there. So yeah, final shots 41-30 for the Leafs. That's nice to see the Leafs get a lot of shots on net. I think Matthews had like 7 shots. Now again, he had the overtime penalty shot and stuff too, but he did seem like he was buzzing tonight. And another player that I actually thought was really good tonight, surprisingly, which I don't see that often, was actually Calle Yarncroc. He seemed to be back checking specifically very hard tonight. And I'm not sure if that's because there was a couple times where he gave up the puck in the slot in the O zone. So not a particularly dangerous area to give up the puck, but he just seemed to be really buzzing and back checking profusely hard, and just doing everything he could to sort of impede the progress of Vancouver. So that's nice to see. I think Calle Yarncroc will probably be one of the players that gets shipped out for sure. I think there's a lot of fans and other sports shows like this who aren't really that fond of him. I think he's a great two-way player. I think he's one of those guys that's not really that high on your roster, but he's a very capable player. He's a very capable NHL player. So I'm not exactly sure what his deal is either, or how much it is. But I don't expect him to be on the team next year. But for now, I do like him on here, and you're gonna have an effort like that tonight. I wish I could see that effort a lot more during the season, but for what it is, I'll take it. I was happy with how we played tonight. That was nice to see. It was almost like a Robertson-esque effort. When you have guys like that who are lower in your roster who are just really fighting and chipping super hard to just make something happen out of nothing. It's nice to see. You're like, okay, I'm getting my money's worth here. I'm watching something. It's good. It's good for the fans at home. It's good for the fans in the arena to just get some energy going too. To really see something just happen in the game. Which is nice. So last couple points here. I know this is going a little bit longer than I usually go, but Scott Lawton, again, one of my favorite players on this team, who's a real character core guy. Only played 10:30 again. And this is the beef I'm starting to have with Craig Berube here. You know, Robertson's played a little more lately, which is nice. But okay, I guess like where I'm going with this specifically is like you have some of your bottom feeder guys, which seem to be playing a little bit more in more critical roles, and Scott Lawton, who's probably one of the most important players on this team, is still only playing 10:30. I mean, he barely ever gets above 12 minutes at this point, and I'm not sure why. Like the guy is chippy, he plays hard, he's got the skill to do what he needs to do, and if not, he's a very good supporting cast member on his line and on this team. So I'm just at this point, like I like to see him up more towards like the 14, 15 mark. I know that's not that big of a gain, but it's a couple extra shifts here and there to make a difference. I think you need a physical presence on the ice, just something to kind of make the other team, you know, maybe give up a puck or two, or just they're gonna take an extra hit or a scrum. It's worth it though. So he's a guy that I would like to have on this team after this season, but I just don't think that at this point how he's been treated on this team, like he's ever going to resign here. I'd almost feel better just for him as a person and for his career that he gets sent away and can go to a team where they actually appreciate him. Because the fans love him and everything, but I think like the coaching staff for some reason just hates him. Will barely let him play over 10 minutes at this point. I mean, that's ridiculous. For one of your guys that's one of the hardest working players in this team, you don't reward him or barely play him at all. It doesn't make sense. And this is starting to be my problem with Berube. I just think that his coaching style at this point is not conducive to how this roster plays. And even if they get a new roster and they replace most of these guys, I still don't think I want Berube to coach here, to be honest with you. I'd rather have Lalonde take over, coach this team, even if it's now or even like next season. Just somebody who's like, you need some coach that's in between a Sheldon Keefe, who was pretty young at the time, in between a Sheldon Keefe and like a Mike Babcock. You need somebody in the middle of there. We've had young coaches, we've had these old guys who've played in the 80s or 90s or whatever, who played a completely different style of hockey, who don't necessarily know how the game works today. And I know Berube's a Stanley Cup winner. I know he's coached in the league for a very long time. So just my opinion personally, but I feel like he's losing touch with the small things that really matter to a fan base and a team. Like playing your favorite players who are good and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go on a rant about it, but I think you need sort of an in-between coach there who knows the modern day game is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Yeah, and speaking of that too, like Yarncroc only played 9-16 tonight, which seems incredibly odd considering that he was seemingly on the ice a ton. So I'm not, maybe my eyes are just playing tricks on me, and I don't know, but it's a very low amount of ice time, even less than Lawton for how much I seemingly saw him tonight in the effort. So good for him. If you can make an impression in a game on 9-16 of ice time, well, then I guess you're doing pretty good. So it's not bad. Yeah, let's see who the Leafs play next here because I actually don't remember. Let's see. Okay, Monday at 10 o'clock. Fuck, I hate the 10 o'clock games, man. Why? On a Monday, too? You got to go to work the next day? God. All right, so Leafs and Flames, Monday, 10 p.m. Flames, let's see the record here real quick. I know we're going long, but okay, I can't even figure that out. Whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, well, I don't think the Flames are doing very well either from what I, have seen in the league, I guess. So that'll be a tough one. Yeah, I think the Leafs should win that one though. So we'll see how it goes. I should be able to do a show after that one, as long as I get home and do a nap after work. That usually works. So yeah, hopefully for the most part, I know Riley was injured tonight too. I hope he stays injured and doesn't come back. I know that's so bad to say, but honestly, it just the decor seems more solid when he's not there. I know he did some good things tonight too, so it's not all bad. I love the guy. I just please go to a different team with all due respect. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. If you're tuning in, appreciate it. If you're not tuning in, you should be. I will see you Monday at approximately 1 to 1:30 in the AM. So, all right, see you then. Good night.